Hey, what's going on, guys? Hope you're all doing good because we've got something interesting to talk about with Hades 2. And yeah, this is that latest hotfix that just dropped after the bigger update. And honestly, this one is more about cleaning things up rather than completely changing how you play. But there's still quite a bit to unpack once you really look at what's been going on behind the scenes. So first things first, this hotfix basically came in to stabilize everything that came with the previous major update, because that update added a ton of stuff like new dialogue, romance expansions, and combat adjustments, and whenever you push that much content into a game like this, things can get a little messy. So the developers stepped in pretty quickly to smooth things out. One of the biggest things addressed here is crashes. And yeah, I know that sounds basic, but there were some rare crashes happening after the update that could interrupt runs. And in a game like this where you're building momentum, that's the last thing you want. So fixing those stability issues is actually a pretty big deal, even if it doesn't sound exciting at first. Then there's this really specific interaction involving Nemesis where certain summons or abilities could mess with how those encounters played out, and that's now been corrected. So if you ever felt like something weird was happening in those moments, that probably wasn't just in your head. It's been adjusted now, so those encounters should behave the way they were intended. Another interesting fix comes from dialogue triggers, because this update before added a ton of new narrative content, including expanded relationships and extra voice lines. And what was happening is that some of those scenes were triggering earlier than they should. So you'd get moments that didn't quite line up with your progression, and now that's been cleaned up, so the story pacing feels more natural again. There was also a fix tied to Dream Dive encounters where rewards could end up spawning outside of where you could actually reach them, which is honestly frustrating because you earn that stuff and then you can't even grab it, so that's been corrected as well. Making sure rewards are actually obtainable like they should be. And beyond that, there are a bunch of general improvements that fall under that category of things you don't always notice individually, but together they make the experience feel smoother, like minor gameplay inconsistencies, little bugs, and edge cases that could interrupt the flow of a run. Now, to really understand why this hotfix matters, you've got to look at what came before it, because the previous update was actually pretty massive, especially when it comes to narrative and character interactions. Like they added fully narrated conclusion scenes for certain prophecy arcs, which gives more closure to side stories that previously just kind of ended quietly. On top of that, the whole relationship system got expanded, meaning you can continue interacting with characters even after reaching certain bond levels, and that opens up new scenes and dialogue, making the world feel more alive, instead of just hitting a cap and stopping there. Combat also saw some meaningful changes, especially with Ares, who got a bunch of buffs and reworks to make his abilities more viable, like increasing damage on certain boons and making others more consistent in how they trigger, which directly impacts how you build your runs, and that's kind of the bigger picture here. This hotfix isn't trying to reinvent anything, it's making sure that all those new systems, story beats, and balance tweaks actually work together properly without breaking immersion or causing frustration. What's also interesting is how quickly these fixes are coming out, because it shows that the developers are actively watching how players interact with the game and responding fast. And that's something people have been noticing too, especially when it comes to combat tweaks and dialogue improvements that feel directly influenced by feedback. So yeah, overall, this update might not change your build or suddenly introduce something new to grind for, but it plays a really important role in making sure everything added recently actually feels polished, stable, and consistent, which honestly is just as important as adding new content in the first place, because without that polish, even the best features can fall flat. And if you've already been playing after the previous update, you'll probably notice that things just feel a bit tighter now, fewer weird moments, fewer interruptions, and a more consistent experience from start to finish, which is exactly what a hotfix like this is supposed to do.